All right, so we do not have a lot of vocab words for this unit. There's only 3. So we're going to go through each of them, and I'm going to give you some examples and kind of try my best to help you understand, because although there's only 3, they're very important, and they are not the easiest words. So right off the bat, we have a revolution. So the straight-up definition is a political movement, often violent, to overthrow an old government system or leader. It causes complete change in the way a nation acts or is led. So this is very specific of an example to social studies. So when we're when we're learning about history, if you think of America, America was under control of the English Empire, Britain, and then we had a revolution. We threw them out. There was a war involved, there was political change, and we got new leaders, and there you go. Now, if you're taking it outside of social studies, a revolution is just like a really big change in the way things are done, and it's usually viewed as change for the better, although not always. But for example, in science, there's a revolution as far as when we introduce power to cities so people can have lights and refrigeration and all of that. That is a revolution of a lifestyle. To be a bit goofier with it or less serious, if you look at like the NBA, Steph Curry helped revolutionize an aspect of the game where players started to shoot threes way more, and they started to shoot threes from a way bigger distance. When I was a kid, shooting a 3 in transition was an ultimate no-no, whereas now people do it all the time. He changed the way everything was done. If you're really into music, sometimes a musician can revolutionize pop music in the sense of they change the way everybody else does it as well. They bring in a new technology, a new idea, a new style, and all of a sudden everybody's copying that style. They kind of caused a revolution. It built off of that. So one last time in social studies, a revolution is usually when you overthrow a government or violently fight against a government or a group of leaders and try to get to overthrow them. Our next term is a proxy war. So the definition is when large and powerful countries like the United States or Russia support smaller countries with weapons and supplies to help fight wars that the big countries don't want to fight in. So a few examples would be like the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and all of the Cold War. Essentially, America and Russia didn't physically fight one another. We did not send troops to Russia to fight Russia, and Russia did not send troops to America to fight us. But we would take something like in Korea, there's a conflict. All of a sudden, Russia is sending weapons along with China to the North Korean government, and we're sending weapons to the South Korean government, and we're all of a sudden bringing troops into the South, and they're bringing troops into the North. We're not fighting each other directly. The two countries are not directly fighting a war, but they're fighting a war through what's called a proxy or a third party or someone else. This image is kind of meant to help it out. So this comes from the Syrian War back when Obama was president. So this is one group of the Syrian Civil War. This would be the other group in the Syrian Civil War. That's the Syrian president, and that is Vladimir Putin of Russia. And essentially what this little comic is saying is that America keeps putting money and weapons and troops and training to one side of the conflict, and in the other side of the conflict we have Russia funding and doing the exact opposite thing. So even today, these two countries are not fighting each other directly, but we're funding other countries to kind of do our fighting for us. And it gets pretty messy. The skulls are kind of meant to symbolize the casualties that all of our money is really causing. And then the last is a theocracy. Now, this is a government style. We've learned about a few government styles this year. You have democracy, where people vote for their leadership. You have communism, where the government controls things and tries to spread it out, like the government owns everything and makes sure everybody has what they need. A new one is a theocracy. And a theocracy is basically a government system based on a specific religion and led by the leaders of that religion. So in Iran, their modern government is centered around Islam, Shia to be specific, and then the leader is also the top religious leader in the country, and all laws are centered around their interpretation of Islam. So It could be any religion. Theocracies have been all across the world. If you look at like the Vatican with the Pope, that's a theocracy. He's in charge. He's also the religious leader. So it's really just any government that's run by a religion or a religious institution. Hopefully this all helped.